That was how the Premier League sounded on talkSPORT. This is The Social on talkSPORT 2. I was just trying to think who might be in your honours list already. Arise, Dennis Wise.
Oh, I'd have knighted Wisey years ago. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
Have you started having
what's better, being knighted, sir, or being an MBE?
Knighted.
So knighted is
100%.
better, okay? Because I want to give Dennis Wise, I would bestow upon him the greatest of honours that you can give.
the greatest of greatest. Yeah, it goes MBE, OBE, CBE, knighthood.
Okay, so Dennis Wise, knighthood. Frank Lampard, Sir Frank Lampard, knighthood.
Are you going to give out a few MBEs and OBEs as well? And CBEs?
I'd give Jessica Ennis. And one of the most significant distinctions.
Yeah. Okay. Damehood.
I'd make. Yeah. Is she already that?
She's already.
I'd underscore it.
She's already a dame. Okay. Well, we'll get into that.
She's an
later.
icon. She's my favourite athlete
ever. Oh right. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Right. So let's get stuck into the Premier League this weekend and that race for the top five. We've just touched a bit on Nottingham Forest there, but I thought that was a really significant result that at the weekend. You mentioned already that loss to Aston Villa, which you might have seen coming, but the Everton result, I know they've done really well under David Moyes, but Forest have been so strong at home this season. I actually thought that would be the thing that gets them over the line. Are we seeing a few jitters, do you think, from Forest?
Yes, and this is going to sound very harsh when you talk about Nottingham Forest, but I do believe this to be true. If they now don't make the top five, if Forest don't qualify for the Champions League, I'm not suggesting it's a failing season. I think it's a very impressive season. I think Nuno Espirito Santo has done an excellent job. But expectations change at various points in the season. Their first priority would have been don't go down. Obviously, that is no longer even a consideration. So you think about other things. If they now do not qualify for the Champions League, bearing in mind that they spent 115 days in the top five, if they were to finish outside of the top five when it really matters, I think on some level that would be a failure.
Yeah, but when you look at the teams they're competing with, there's a lot of teams there that have done this before. They even if you look at that Newcastle side, managed to get in the top four a couple of seasons ago. Villa have done it last season. Manchester City, we obviously know about. This is where it heats up. This is where it becomes very tricky, and there's members of that Forest squad who haven't been in that kind of battle
Ollie,
before.
though, you must concede they're third.
They're
third with 6 to play.
Newcastle will overtake them into third if they beat Palace on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's say that happens. They're fourth with 6 to play, which still gives them a buffer of a place. They're still allowed to finish fifth. You know, I don't think I genuinely believe. I know that most people disagree with this, but I see second to fifth as fairly interchangeable positions. I don't see second being particularly more glamorised than fifth. I really don't. I think first is the be-all and end-all, and after that, you're competing about being the best loser, and therefore, it doesn't matter. You will get the same prize. Forest are allowed to finish fifth. I think that would be a great season. And obviously, if they marry that up with winning the Cup, it would be an outrageously brilliant season. But you can't sit in the top five for the amount of time that they have. You can't be as dominant as they have been. You can't be as brilliant as they have been, especially at home. And then ultimately capitulate when it most matters.
What do you see as more important for a club like Nottingham Forest? Is it that qualification for the Champions League, given where they've come from at the start of the season, or is it actually getting a trophy and winning that FA Cup?
Your framing of the question is tricky for me to answer, because what you said was most important. For whom, I would have to ask you, because if it's most important for a fan, most important for the club, in my opinion, I always prioritise Silverware. Silverware is a be-all and end-all. Winning Silverware in May at Wembley is no feeling quite like it. It becomes historic. It lives forever. It's something that Nottingham Forest would be so desperate to do. But I believe if you were to ask maybe Edu or someone along those lines, I think that they would say top five.
I think that Forest fans, and it's very specific to Forest, I think they're a bit more split on this.
I don't think so.
I think there's a fair chunk of Forest fans who there's such a romantic relationship with Europe. They've won the European Cup twice under Brian Clough in 79 and 80. There's something about those European nights being back at the City Ground that I think a few of those Forest fans are going to be a bit more interested in trying to qualify for the top five than potentially winning the FA Cup. I'm not saying every Forest fan, but I think there will be some that want that.
I believe that when you have this debate, there's always fans that will prioritise. So, for example, if you were to ask me, I would say we were in a good European competition. Tottenham, let's use Tottenham as an example. If I were a Tottenham fan, I'd be going, finish 16th and win the Europa League, you've had a better season than Arsenal if Arsenal don't win the Champions League.
Do you actually think that?
Yeah, I will always say that, I don't know, the season that Ten Hag had, when they won Silverware and Arteta didn't, I would always say that Manchester United's season would be a better season because it's historic.
It's not great, but they came 8th, though, and we talk.
They came 8th and they won,
16th or even 17th for Tottenham. Like that's appalling.
I think a good example to prove this point, in my opinion, at least, is if you analyse Ten Hag's last season, so last full season, with Arsenal that year. Arsenal that year played some of the best football that they've played for a decade. They ran Manchester City so close. From January onwards, they were virtually perfect. They lost that one game at home to Villa, and that's where it went wrong. But they were basically phenomenal out of 19 games, 18 times, 17 times. Manchester United were all over the place. But Manchester United went to Wembley. They stopped Manchester City winning a double off the back of winning a treble. So they stopped them winning a double-double. They beat their rival at Wembley. Yeah, they finished 8th. But that moment, when Bruno Fernandes lays it off to Kobe Mainoo, will live forever.
But could Arsenal have got that close to Manchester City if they've also focused on winning a trophy and getting to the final?
Maybe not. But then it's a question about what Arteta should prioritise. Winning the league is the be-all and end-all, no doubt. That's what you live for, winning the league. But after that, it's winning silverware.
But you genuinely think this season then, if Arsenal finish second, and let's be fair, it's by a long, long, long way, but at the moment they're looking like they're going to knock Real Madrid out of the Champions League. Let's say, they get to the semis, they lose to PSG, right? And they come second in the league, albeit by a long way because they're miles behind Liverpool. But Tottenham come 16th and win the Europa League. Who's had the better season?
Tottenham will have ended their trophy drought of nearly 20 years. Tottenham will have qualified for the Champions League in the way that Arsenal will have done, but crucially...
But they'll have had one of the worst league campaigns they've had in
it's all
such
small
a long
margins,
time.
isn't it? It's all really small margins. Football is always built on small margins. If you look over the course of history, if Aston Villa didn't beat Manchester United in the League Cup final in 1994, Manchester United would have won a treble that year. But they didn't, and therefore it's the small margins of football.
I know you're winning silverware as well, but actually, is it harder to get to the semi-finals of the Champions League than winning the Europa League? Yes, it is.
Of course it is.
100%.
Of course it is. It's harder to get to the semi-finals of the Champions League than winning the League Cup. But you'd rather win the League Cup than go out in the semis of the Champions League.
I still don't think it would be a better season. I don't.
Who's had a better season this year, Newcastle United or Arsenal, if Arsenal go out in the Champions League semi-final?
Newcastle have.
Okay.
But that's
so it's the same principle.
Too.
It's the same principle, just extrapolated, isn't it?
When you talk about Tottenham there, are you talking pound for pound as well? Or are you talking generally?
I don't think this is particularly... I think most people will agree with you, by the way. But I don't think it's a very tricky science. I'm just saying that silverware will always reign supreme. If you win silverware, you know if I would say to you, in 1970, what happened football-wise? If you ask a Chelsea fan that, they'll go, Chelsea won the FA Cup. In 1971, what happened? Chelsea went to Athens. We went to Athens and we beat Real Madrid in a Cup Winners' Cup final. I don't know what position we finished in the league that year. I genuinely don't know.
When you won the Champions League in 2012, where did you finish?
Sixth.
Yeah.
But you only know that because it's famous. Yeah. Like I honestly don't know.
Newcastle came fifth.
I honestly don't know the answer to this question. But one of Liverpool's most beautiful moments in their entire history, and they've got a rich history, was when Rafael Benitez took them to the Ataturk and Steven Gerrard was a king. I'm asking you because I don't know the answer. Do you know where they finished in the league that year?
I don't know where they finished, but I know they finished above 16th. That's what I mean. What's the difference? That is so bad.
Let's pretend. So I believe they finished 5th, but let's pretend that they finished 16th. Do you think that would make Istanbul less sweet?
No, but that's winning the Champions League. We're talking about winning the Europa League. I think that's completely different. And I think coming 16th in the league is such an atrocious season for a club like Tottenham that you have to take that into account.
Going trophyless for 2 decades, Jonathan Woodgate's team being the last team to see them win it.
Yeah, but they didn't finish 17th or 16th that season.
No, but they struggled at various points that season. But
not that much.
No, not that much.
They didn't get pumped by Wolves. They didn't lose to Leicester. They didn't lose to Ipswich at home.
But the game is about winning silverware. So what would be a better season for Tottenham then? Finishing 16th and winning the Europa League, or finishing 6th and winning nothing?
Well, you get in the Europa League again, wouldn't you, if you came 6th? So you had a chance next season.
So you're in the Champions League via winning via my method of 16th and onwards. You're also in the Champions League.
Well, we'll do a bit more on that a bit later on. If we just quickly focus as well on that race for the top four. Newcastle's win over Manchester United yesterday absolutely battered them. As a fan, I genuinely wasn't even nervous before that game because of the state of Man United.
You nervous at 1-0 down?
We weren't 1-0 down. It was 1-1.
Were you nervous when they equalised?
It was so against them on the play. No, not really. I have faith in this Newcastle team to come through that. They're so strong at home. They've been so good since the League Cup as well. And actually, do you know what's so impressive about it is Eddie Howe, and we hope he's well, of course, recovering in hospital. It was so interesting after the game. Tino Livramento pointed out, he said, look, the gaffer's not even been in, but we're so confident in knowing our jobs that actually we were fine. We were fully prepared for this game. I feel like that shows a club that with real synergy. Do you think they're in the box seat now to get into that top 5 and secure it?
Newcastle? Yeah, no jeopardy. No drama, no jeopardy. It's in the bag. I really believe it's in the bag. Not only because Newcastle are finding form at the right time, but there is a culture of winning within the club now, which comes from winning silverware, by the way, which is another reason why winning silverware is so significant for Tottenham if they were to win silverware.
Okay, but if Tottenham, I know we're going to talk about this later, but if Tottenham won that Europa League, would they then keep Ange Postecoglou?
No.
Exactly like Eric Ten Hag?
No.
Exactly like that situation?
No, but you're acting like that's part of the package. You don't have to do that.
It would be though, wouldn't it?
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. It takes a very brave
what happens. It's exactly the same thing happened with Eric Ten Hag.
It doesn't happen everywhere. I've seen Chelsea teams win silverware and get rid of the manager very quickly, if not immediately. Chelsea won the Europa League amazingly, in fact. We won the Europa League under Maurizio Sarri, who sacked, or he left, whatever way you want to put it. But it ended. You don't have to persevere with a bad manager simply because they win you silverware.
We're going to get stuck into that a bit later on. This is the Social Hit on talkSPORT 2. Next up, we're going to focus a bit more on Rory's Chelsea and ask if the pressure has ramped up even more on Enzo Maresca.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.